Outlander Season 8 holds more than battles, time travel, and romance. It carries the weight of a mystery left behind years ago, a mystery that has haunted Claire, Jamie, and fans alike. The tragedy of their first daughter, Faith, was one of the most heartbreaking chapters in Outlander's story. But what if the final season and the spin-off Blood of My Blood are not just about endings, but about healing? What if this is where Faith's silent story finally finds its voice? To understand why Faith's mystery still matters, we must return to Paris. To a time when Claire and Jamie fought not only against politics and enemies, but also against fate itself. Faith Fraser was their first daughter, born in Season 2, in a foreign land far from the safety of Scotland. Her birth was not filled with joy, but with unbearable sorrow. Claire suffered one of the most painful moments of her life when she gave birth to Faith stillborn. It was a moment that shattered her heart, broke her body, and left scars that time itself could never erase. For Jamie, locked away in the Bastille during those hours, the loss was not just of a child, but of a chance to stand beside his wife, to hold her, and to face fatherhood for the very first time. Faith was more than a baby lost in childbirth. A reminder of how fragile love and family are in a world full of wars and sacrifices. Claire carried the weight of Faith's memory even as she raised Brianna years later. Every tender moment with Brianna, every laugh and every tear, was shadowed by the child who never had the chance to breathe, to cry, or to know her mother's love. Jamie, too, though less vocal about Faith, carried the silent grief of a father who lost his firstborn. The pain of losing Faith was so strong that it even pushed Claire and Jamie apart. For a time, their marriage fractured under the crushing weight of grief, guilt, and anger. Claire blamed herself. Jamie blamed himself. And neither of them could truly face the wound that Faith's absence left behind. But the beauty of Outlander has always been its ability to show how love bends, breaks, and yet somehow survives. Claire and Jamie moved forward. They healed enough to continue. They raised Brianna. They found each other again through time and distance. Yet even through all of this, Faith remained a ghost. Not the kind of ghost that haunts with fear, but one that lingers in silence, waiting for recognition. What makes Faith's story more haunting is how rarely she has been mentioned in later seasons. The writers gave us one of the most emotional episodes of the entire series, with Claire holding her tiny child in her arms, saying goodbye before letting her go, and then, almost as if the weight was too heavy to carry forward, Faith was set aside, her name spoken only in whispers or forgotten altogether. For fans, this has always been a painful mystery. Why has Outlander never returned to honor Faith's presence? Why has Claire's deepest wound remained unspoken for so long? This silence is what makes Season 8 and Blood of My Blood so important. The title alone speaks of bloodlines, of children, of family, and of the ties that connect generations. It is impossible to ignore that Faith is part of this story too, even if she never lived to see it. Her blood is Jamie's, her blood is Claire's, and her memory is woven into the fabric of their family's legacy. Outlander's story has always been about the power of blood, love, and time. And Faith Fraser is the missing piece that has never been fully acknowledged as the series prepares to close its main story. The mystery of Faith calls louder than ever. Fans are asking, will the writers finally give Faith the recognition she deserves? Will Claire and Jamie, as they face the final battles of their journey, also find peace with the daughter they lost? The answer may lie not only in Season 8, but also in the spin-off that carries the powerful title, Blood of My Blood. Blood of My Blood is not just the name of a spin-off. It is a phrase soaked with meaning, a phrase that echoes through the very heart of Outlander. When you hear it, you don't just think of children or parents. You think of family, of bonds that survive beyond time, beyond war, and even beyond death. This is why the moment the title was revealed, fans felt that it was not simply about Lord John Grey and William. It was something bigger, something that connects every part of the Fraser legacy, including Faith. The spin-off centers on Lord John Grey, one of the most complex and honorable characters in the Outlander universe. and his bond with William, Jamie's illegitimate son. On the surface, this is a story about fathers and sons, duty and loyalty, chosen family versus blood family. But the deeper message is clear. Outlander is closing its circle around the ties of blood. And when you talk about Jamie's bloodline, you cannot ignore Faith, the child who carried that same legacy but never lived to pass it on. The very choice of words "blood of my blood" forces us to ask, whose blood is being spoken of? Is it only about William and John, or is it a reminder of every child connected to Jamie, whether living or lost? Outlander has always been careful with titles, weaving them with hidden meaning. Dragonfly and Amber was not just about gemstones, it was about memory and the way time preserves love. Voyager was not just a sea journey, it was Claire and Jamie's emotional voyage back to one another. So when you hear "blood of my blood," it is almost impossible not to think about Faith. The child made of Jamie and Claire's blood, the child whose existence shaped everything that came after. This is why the connection between the spin-off and Faith is so haunting. It does not mean Faith will appear as a character. She may never walk into a scene or speak a single line, but her presence could be felt through symbolism, through memory, through the way Jamie and Claire finally acknowledge the hole she left behind. Even as William steps forward as the next bearer of the Fraser bloodline, Faith's absence must be honored for that bloodline to feel whole. Think about how often Outlander has returned to themes of family across time. Brianna and Roger's children bridging past and future. Fergus, adopted but no less a son to Jamie. Even John Grey himself, raising William as though he were his own. Blood is not just about DNA. It is about love, choice, sacrifice, and the people we claim as ours. When yet Faith is the one piece of blood, the one piece of family, has remained silent in the background. This silence is what makes the title "Blood of My Blood" so powerful. It opens a door. It invites a return to unfinished stories. It almost whispers that Faith has been waiting, not to come back in flesh, but to finally be remembered. And if Outlander is truly about bringing every thread full circle, then this could be the perfect moment for the writers to give Claire and Jamie, the fans, the closure they have waited for since Paris. Every story leaves behind a shadow, and Faith is that shadow in Outlander. She's not gone in the way other characters are gone. She's not a villain defeated or a friend who died in battle. Faith is a whisper, a question that has never been answered, a wound that has never been healed. And in storytelling, unanswered wounds demand closure. This is why fans believe that the mystery of Faith may finally be resolved in the final season, and in Blood of My Blood. But how can this happen when Faith never lived? Outlander has always worked with more than the physical world. It is a story built on visions, prophecies, dreams, and the bending of time itself. Claire has seen things that defy logic. Jamie has dreamed of moments that came true years later. Their love has broken the rules of space and time again and again. If Faith's story is to return, it does not have to come through flesh and blood. It can come through spirit, through memory, or through the symbolic healing of a family line. One theory suggests that Claire may see Faith again. It's not as a child, but as a vision, the way she once saw Jamie when they were separated by centuries. Imagine a moment where Claire is caught between life and death, something that has happened before in this series, and she sees Faith waiting for her. It's not to stay, but to guide her back. That would not just be powerful, it would be the kind of emotional release Outlander thrives on. Another theory points to Jamie. For all of his strength, Jamie has carried silent grief his entire life. We see him fight for Scotland, for his family, for his honor, but he has never truly spoken about Faith. What if Season 8 gives Jamie his moment of recognition? A confession, a prayer, or even a dream where he acknowledges his first daughter, admitting the love he never got to give her. In that moment, Jamie's bloodline, Brianna, William, and even the generations to come would carry not just his victories, but also his grief. Finally spoken aloud, then there's the symbolic resolution. Blood of My Blood is not just about William stepping into his identity as Jamie's son. It could also be the writer's way of tying together all of Jamie and Claire's children born, lost, or adopted. Fergus, Brianna, William, Jemmy, Mandy, and yes, Faith, by bringing Faith's name into the story one last time. writers would be saying, all of Jamie's children matter, not just the ones who lived, but the one who was lost too soon. And so the question lingers, will Outlander dare to bring Faith back into the light? Not as a living child, but as a presence, a memory, a name spoken with love instead of silence. If it does, then Faith's story will no longer be unfinished. It will become what it was always meant to be, a reminder that love is stronger than loss, and that blood, whether lived or lost, still binds the Fraser family together. Stories like Outlander never forget. Even when the dialogue moves on, even when characters do not speak the name, the story itself continues to carry the weight of what came before. Faith may not have been openly spoken about in later seasons, but her presence has been hidden in the echoes, waiting for those who are willing to listen. If we look closely, we can see how the show has been whispering her name in quiet moments across the years. One of the clearest echoes comes through. Claire's journey as a mother. Every time she looks at Brianna with pride, there is a shadow of loss behind her eyes. She comforts her grandchildren when she fights desperately for her family's survival. There is more than just love at plate. Is love sharpened by the memory of the child she could not protect? Outlander rarely makes Claire speak of Faith, but her every action as a mother feels heavier because of that silent grief. The audience may not always notice it, but the weight is there. Jamie carries subtle signs of Faith's memory. He has always been a man who values his children more than life itself. His bond with Fergus, his pride in Brianna, his complicated love for William all of these moments are strengthened by the unspoken knowledge that he once lost his first child, is never spoken of it at length, but Jamie's quiet grief shows in the way he clings fiercely to the children he has, determined never to lose another. In this way, Faith is always with him, shaping him, even without her name being spoken. There are also moments where Outlander itself seems to call back to Faith through imagery. In Season 4, Claire delivers Brianna's baby, and the scene is filled with both joy and tension. For some fans, that moment was impossible to watch without remembering Paris, without remembering the baby Claire once held, who never cried. The contrast between those two births felt intentional, like the show wanted to remind us of both heartbreak and healing. It was as if Faith was present in the room, a silent witness to her sister's arrival as a mother. Even the recurring themes of visions and time, travel carry the echo of Faith. When Claire stands between life and death, when she hears the voices of the unborn or sees fragments of the future, it feels like a door opening. Faith may not have stepped through that door yet, but the possibility has always been there. Outlander has trained us to expect the impossible, to believe that love can reach across time. If Brianna can walk through stones, if Jamie can dream of his daughter before ever meeting her, then why can't Faith reach across the veil in some form? This is why the silence around Faith feels less like forgetting and more like waiting. The writers did not erase her. They placed her in the shadows of the story, in the softest parts of Claire's love, in the strongest parts of Jamie's devotion, and in the themes of family that echo through every season. Each time the show returned to bloodlines, to children. To the idea of legacy, Faith was there in spirit, not gone, not erased, but waiting for the right moment to return. And now, as the series nears its end, all of those echoes matter more than ever. The past seasons have prepared us for a reckoning. Faith's absence has been felt in silence, and silence in storytelling is never empty. It is a drumbeat, a buildup, a promise that one day the silence will break. Blood may finally be the place where those echoes turn into a voice. Stories as powerful as Outlander do not leave ghosts wandering forever. When a tale reaches its final chapter, every shadow must find its light. That is why so many believe Season 8 will finally return to Faith, not as a forgotten memory, but as a presence that gives meaning to the end. The question is not if Faith will return, it is how. One possibility is through Claire. She has always stood at the edge of life and death. From the battlefield surgeries to her near-death visions, Claire has walked closer to the veil than most. Imagine a moment in Season 8 where Claire, weakened by injury or illness, slips into that in-between space once again. And they're waiting. For her is Faith not as an infant, but as the daughter she might have grown to be, not to stay, not to change the rules of time, but to remind Claire that she was never alone. A single look, a single smile, could carry more power than words. It would be the ultimate release of grief carried across. Decades. Another prediction is centered on Jamie. His journey has always been about legacy, about what kind of world he will leave for his children. He's given everything for Brianna, everything for William, everything for Fergus. But there has always been an empty place in his heart, the place where Faith belongs. What if Season 8 gives Jamie a final moment of recognition? Perhaps he whispers her name in prayer. Perhaps he tells Brianna about her older sister, giving Faith a place in their family's living memory. Even a short scene where Jamie admits the love he never spoke aloud could change the weight of the entire series. There is also the possibility of a symbolic return. Outlander thrives on metaphors and echoes. The writers may choose to honor Faith without showing her directly. This could be done through a vision of a child in a dream, or through a parallel moment where Brianna or her children embody the love and loss that began with Faith. In this way, the story would tie the beginning of Claire and Jamie's family, the loss, in Paris, to the flourishing of their descendants. The circle would close, not through resurrection, but through remembrance. The most daring prediction is that Blood of My Blood itself could carry Faith's name. While the spin-off focuses on Lord John Grey and William, the very title suggests unfinished bloodlines. Subtle mention of Faith, even in conversation, would be enough to give her a place in that narrative. Perhaps William, as he learns more about his father's past, could hear of the sister he never knew. Imagine the impact of that revelation, that he is not just Jamie's son, but also the brother of a child lost long before his birth. Whatever form it takes, vision, confession, or symbolic recognition, the return of Faith would not just be about a single character, it would be about healing. It would be about giving Claire and Jamie peace in their final chapter. And it would be about giving fans the closure they have carried in silence for years. Outlander has always been about love stronger than time, stronger than death, stronger than fate. Bringing Faith back into the story would prove that even the smallest life, the shortest breath, can leave an eternal mark on the heart of a family. Every great story is not only about the people who live in it, but about the legacy they leave behind. For the Frasers, that legacy has been written in blood, in sacrifice, and in love that cross the limits of time. But even the strongest legacy can feel incomplete when a part of it is left in silence. Faith's absence has always been that missing piece. Without her, the Fraser bloodline feels like a tapestry with one thread left loose. Season 8 may be the moment where that missing thread is finally woven back in. Completing the design, think of how the Fraser family has grown through the seasons. Jamie and Claire's love gave them Brianna, who carried their story into the future. William, born out of secrecy, became another bearer of Jamie's blood. Fergus, though adopted, became no less a son, no less a Fraser. Jemmy and Mandy represent the continuation of the line, children who bridge centuries and carry the Fraser spirit forward. Yet before all of them, there was Faith, the first child, the one who was lost. Without her being remembered, the story of the Fraser legacy has always been slightly unfinished. This is why bringing Faith back into the narrative, even in the quietest way, would reshape the entire family's story. Imagine Brianna finally hearing the truth about her older sister. Imagine William realizing that he was not Jamie's only hidden child. These revelations would not change the future, but they would honor the past. They would remind everyone, characters and audience alike, that every life matters, even the ones cut short. Faith's memory would give depth to the legacy that Jamie and Claire leave behind, making it richer, more human, and more complete. Outlander has always been about more than love between two people. It has been about how that love creates ripples. Across generations, Claire and Jamie's devotion gave birth not just to children, but to a story of survival, resilience, and hope. If Faith is finally acknowledged in Season 8, then her presence will ripple too. It will touch Brianna, it will touch William, and it will touch the grandchildren who may one day learn that their family tree began not with one child, but with two. The recognition of Faith would turn a wound into wisdom, a silence into strength. The Fraser legacy is not just about blood. It is about memory. And in Season 8, memory may finally turn to healing. Faith may not live, but through remembrance. Her place in the Fraser story could finally be secured forever. Every story begins with hope, passes through sorrow, and ends with meaning. For Claire and Jamie, their story began with passion, faced countless storms, and has always been defined by love that refuses to break. Yet in the shadows of all their victories and heartbreaks, there has always been Faith the child, who never breathed, yet somehow shaped every step of their journey. If Season 8 chooses to honor her, it will not just be a small detail, it will be the final piece of the puzzle, the moment where Outlander comes full circle. Faith's tragedy showed us the cost of destiny. She was the price Claire and Jamie paid. For the dangerous road they walked in Paris, her loss was the first proof that their love, as powerful as it was, could not always protect them from fate. But the silence around her, carried for so many seasons, has left fans waiting for closure. Season 8 and the title, Blood of My Blood, feel like a promise that the silence will finally break. Imagine the final chapters of Outlander with Faith, acknowledged at last. Claire and Jamie, older, wiser, and near the end of their journey, taking a moment to speak of their first child. Perhaps Claire remembers her face. Perhaps Jamie whispers her name in prayer. Perhaps they both admit that though Faith was lost, she was never forgotten. In that moment, the grief of Paris would no longer be just an open wound. It would become part of their legacy, honored instead of hidden. For the audience, this would be one of the most emotional resolutions the series could give. Outlander has always been about love enduring across centuries. But what greater proof of love is there than to remember a life that lasted only a moment? Faith's recognition would show that even the smallest existence can leave a mark that never fades. It would tell fans that the story did not forget her, but the writers carried her too, waiting for the right time to give her a place in the end. And so, when we hear the title, Blood of My Blood, it no longer feels like just a story about fathers and sons, or about William and Lord John Grey. It becomes something larger. It becomes a statement about every Fraser child, those who lived, those who were adopted, and the one who was lost. It becomes about the unbreakable ties of family, about how blood remembers even when history tries to forget. If Outlander ends with Faith's presence acknowledged, then the series will close with more than just romance and time travel. It will close with healing. It will close with legacy. And it will close with the reminder that love, even love for a child gone too soon, can travel across time just as powerfully as Claire and Jamie themselves. This is how the story of Faith can finally end, not in silence, but in remembrance. And that is how Outlander can leave us with its most powerful message of all. Love is stronger than death, stronger than time, and strong enough to carry every name, every memory, every heartbeat into eternity.